I'll protect you from the lightning.
What are you gonna do?
I really do like Lexi and Jesse having their like rooftop meeting. It's great how there's like a gathering storm over the city, like as they're talking, like the clouds are getting darker.
Oh, and yeah, we got some nice pathetic fallacy.
Exactly. And we're kind of going into it being like what is Jesse going to disclose, if anything? There's literally a point where she asks them about like about the party or something, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there was like a thunderclap that they put in right there. Presumably they put in.
So how was last weekend? You had the party?
Yeah. We had Craigie Beast in town. I'm trying to remember what else happened. I felt a drop.
I felt a drop on my back.
But you could kind of see the moment where Jesse decides to not divulge any more information about what happened at the party, and then the storm seems to like gather in intensity as he does that.
With the two pieces of information that are going to be revealed to her, he's setting her up to be struck by lightning twice, just like her great granddad.
Yeah.
My great grandfather was struck by lightning, I think twice.
Great grandpapa?
Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, joined as always by Dylan Ferguson.
Hit it, Fergie.
Dylan, we're going to be talking about Summer House today, and it is heating up in the Summer House or outside of the Summer House in the case of this episode. Do you want to give us a quick summary of what happened this episode?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm digging this so much. Anybody who's watching on YouTube can see that I'm Summer House moding. I tried to get an outfit that feels like Summer House vibe-ish, but now that I'm seeing myself, I kind of just look like Kevin Smith. This wasn't what I was going for. All right, so this episode, we were kind of dealing with the aftermath of the party that we had last time. Early going, there's a bit more fraying, a bit more tensions that are exposing themselves between Paige and Craig. We get some snide comments on their ends. We have a rooftop date between Jesse and Lexi where they commit to be exclusive to one another. And then after that, there's an event, a launch for Carl's, well, not quite a launch since he doesn't actually have a physical location yet, but a party in celebration of his plans to open a non-alcoholic bar. Don't call it a cafe.
A soft launch.
A soft lunch for soft, yeah. And during that, some of the gossip from the party starts to get shared amongst the people, certainly as concerns Jesse's behavior, his flirtatiousness and toe-sucking. And also some gossip is starting to be shared about Carl's potential love interest, Lil, and when they started talking, which culminates in a kickball game, which ends with Lexi, who wasn't at the soft lunch, finally learning about Jesse's behavior and confronting him over it.
Yeah, I loved the way that tension was handled during this episode in a few different cases. Like in the scene that we get between Craig and Paige right out of the gate where they're in their room, it is so tense there. You can just feel it. It feels like a relationship, like the dying gasps of a dying relationship. And, the fact that they dragged this out until like December blows my mind because this is clearly the middle of the summer. So it must have been like months of hell. But the way that the tension is handled there is just so good. Like there's all this underlying uncertainty in this relationship that is presented as being like so secure. Like Craig's like, oh, I want to stop for food on the way home, or actually I just want to like get drive through, or actually I should just go and get eggs. Like just this like uneasiness between the two of them that I thought was just like really expertly handled on this scene. And then this nugget of information about Jesse sucking toes and flirting with Ciara, the way that we see this information travel from person to person throughout this episode, building the tension for like, when is it going to get to Lexi? How is she going to respond? I just thought that was amazing. And then at the end of it, we get, like you said, the information about Carl talking with Lil before he broke up with Lindsay and setting that up for the next episode. Just like constant tension in different areas. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many good things that you just mentioned there. I kind of want to take it back to what you started talking about, the Craig and Paige thing, which was kind of just a little nugget we get off the top, and then it isn't really dealt with later this episode. But I agree with you how awesome it is, how efficiently they kind of communicate that sort of late relationship rot, with Paige making some comments, like ironically being like, "That's why he's my number one," and like, but every time Craig tries to beef, I make a joke out of it, where she's very clearly referencing things that Craig has said to her off camera that Craig doesn't want to have said on camera, but they're bleeding out and to be on camera because like Paige can't help herself, but like ironically reference them. And that feels like a very real, relatable kind of like end of relationship situation. And just the fact that it's just starting to bleed out a little bit into the outer friend group is like communicated so efficiently and so well. Like that really hits. Also really like Paige's comment where she's like, I feel like he's being critical in a really southern way, where like the words he's saying sound positive, but it makes me feel bad. And I thought that was pretty on point. And like that is a thing that Southerners are, like in my experience, very skilled at. And I think that like that's why it rings true. Like people often say like, oh, Southerners are so kind. And they are like superficially in the way they talk, but like you have to, I think you like, look, I'm a Canadian, I'm no expert on this, but like from like just like the difference in behavior I've noticed between like dealing with Southern Americans and people that I'm more familiar with up here in the good old North, it's like that's something that I definitely notice is like how they communicate displeasure through like words and statements that sound positive, and you kind of have to know to read them negatively. I remember a while ago I was in a bar in LA, and there was this conversation that was happening at the bar that was really interesting to me, where like there was a guy who was like not a Southerner, but who was talking about how much he loves Southerners to somebody who was, I think, from Kentucky. And he was like, oh yeah, like there's this other bar I was just at earlier today where like the waitress is from Kentucky and we get along so well, and she's so kind. Like everything I'm saying, she's always like, oh bless your heart, it's so sweet. And the guy from Kentucky's like, she's insulting you, right? And he had no idea. These you have to know that like these like phrases and formulations are like negative because the actual words are positive. So I love that like Paige kind of picks up on that and it explains it a little bit for the audience.
Yeah, totally. I want to go back even further before this conversation between Paige and Craig. There is a scene that we're thrown right into at the beginning of this episode where Imrul comes out of the room onto the deck, and Jesse's immediately like, you can feel the tension from him immediately. And I love how we see him trying to reframe what happened the night before in real time. We watch him like pretending that, nothing happened. It was no big deal in the room where he got his toe sucked. And we got a confessional from Imrul about this and being like, why are you pretending like you weren't in the room? Something happened. I just really thought that was a great moment of reality TV where we can see someone, working their craft, trying to reframe things, and Jesse just doesn't have the chops to really pull it off, and the situation is too damning, so he's not able to work with it. I thought that this was a really good inciting incident for Imrul to go around spreading this information, because he was really the catalyst for getting this back to Lexi ultimately, because he was willing to talk about the toe sucking with anyone who would listen. I really like this little piece of setup here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's definitely not like the show that's the most like strategy focused, but that is like that kind of moment where you could see Emerald kind of changing his tack live during that scene, because he's like, even without the confession, you could see him being like, you're kind of grilling me about what I did. How many women did I fuck last night and stuff? And it's like, you're acting like this is just something you know nothing about. You weren't involved whatsoever. Like, and you can tell he's a little bit like a little stung that it's like you're treating me like some kind of spectacle as if you weren't there. Like, and that seems to be the moment where he makes the decision. Like, yeah, I'm gonna tell people about what Jesse did because he's not being upfront with me or with anybody else, and I don't think he deserves it anymore.
So I'm wondering, do you think that Summer House is an easier show to edit and produce into a story versus something like Housewives, or do you think it's more difficult?
I would suspect that it's more difficult without being in that room. I think that, especially with a Housewives show like Beverly Hills, which we're covering recently, where like everybody knows their job so well, and it's like it feels like they can just really like clock in, and they know how to what's expected of them in every scene, what kind of dramas to start and to quench and stuff, and it has these familiar formulas. Whereas it feels a lot more like Summer House, like, okay, we're going to film a bunch of conversations during a party. And for sure, there's some of those that they're trying to guide them into being like, okay, this is going to be the topic of conversation here. You need to bring up this. Sure. But it feels like there's going to be a lot of discovery in the edit too. That's going to have to be done to piece it together, that you're going to have to search for things in the footage you have a lot more than just being like, set up this argument, move on to the next thing. I feel like the editors probably have to work harder to find things to assemble as a storyline. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that'd be my guess too. And you wouldn't really know it from watching this episode because I think it was just so well crafted. The amount of stuff that we got set up in that scene by the pool, the fact that set up, this bombshell, that the ticking time bomb between Jesse and Lexi, we got more set up for Carl and Lil's relationship because that was Wes was asking him about that. And that scene laid the foundation for this whole episode that sprawled across New York City and the Hamptons. And I just thought that this was like such a brilliantly put together episode. Was there anything else that stood out to you in terms of the presentation of this episode?
I really do like Lexi and Jesse having their like rooftop meeting. That was really cool. And it's great how there's like a gathering storm over the city, like as they're talking, like the clouds are getting darker.
We got some nice pathetic fallacy.
Exactly. And we're kind of going into it being like what is Jesse going to disclose, if anything? There's literally a point where she asks them about like about the party or something, and he's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there was like a thunderclap that they put in right there. Presumably they put in, maybe it was organically there. But you could kind of see the moment where Jesse decides to not divulge any more information about what happened at the party. And then the storm seems to like gather in intensity as he does that. And like pretty soon raindrops start falling. They have to move inside for the rest of it. And then it's when they're inside that Jesse's like, we should be exclusive. And then it's starting to rain outside, but they're in their little shelter at that point. And they're like, just, and at that point they're happy because they've got the little shelter. But it really underscores that whole, like, there's something is foreboding, something is going to cast a pallor over this relationship. So I really liked how that scene played out.
With the two pieces of information that are going to be revealed to her, he's setting her up to be struck by lightning twice, just like her great granddad.
Yeah. It's funny how she says, like, my great grandpa was struck by lightning twice, I think. And his reaction is, great grandpapa? Like, okay. Okay, dude.
Jesse and Lexi just seem like such lame people, and I kind of love it. I was really struggling to read Lexi for the beginning of this season, but I've come to appreciate just how lame she is. I also really like how in this episode we kind of have rounded the corner from Lexi being given this like delusional, almost like clingy edit. And then we have this conversation at the end between Jesse and Lexi where they are like, we're finally seeing like, actually Lexi's not the crazy one here. It's Jesse who's like way out of line. So I like that we're kind of rounding the base on her at this baseball game.
Yeah, I mean, the internet's never struck me as making Lexi look crazy. I think that would be a bridge too far. But I think she comes off as not protecting herself, as too innocent. But she's also young, like, so that's like understandable. I feel like she's definitely not protecting herself. Like, it feels like she's really setting herself up for being hurt by like giving so much trust into this guy who does not deserve any trust whatsoever. But she's learning in real time. She's a youngin.
I think we have seen a lot in the edit, at least from Jesse's perspective, of her being too clingy. Like, it's constantly brought up. Even in the intro to this episode, we get the conversation where they're like, "Oh, did Lexi say anything to you about, you know, how you should behave this weekend?" And he says something like, "Yeah, she said to be good." And we've seen a lot of that type of dialogue about Lexi. So I think that now that we're getting it kind of contextualized a bit more, I think that it is endearing us as an audience to Lexi, or at least from my perspective.
Yeah, but also he's like encouraging that so much, like from the start,
totally.
from the minute they met, he's like, he's been like, you know, treat me as your like fiance. Like she said, like he calls her 50 times a day. Like he has been encouraging so much to be like, you know, like act as if we are completely invested in one another. Like, do that. Like, he has not for a second been like, whoa, you know, let's take a little breather here. Let's be realistic. We just met each other. No, he's been so encouraging her to do that, to be like, yes, cling to me, put all your faith in me, do it. So that combined with her innocence, it's like the fact that she's younger and just less experienced than he is. It's like, I can totally understand why she would be that way.
Yeah, I think that what it is raising as a question now is this like something, is this a personality trait that she is like possessive or clingy or however it's been communicated? Or is this her just having strong instincts about who Jesse is? Because now that we have seen how he behaves, you know, off leash, I think that there is a case to be made that this is just her having good instincts. Do you have any questions that you're hoping get answered in the next episode?
Specifically, I don't know. I mean, I will. Obviously, I like to see how that plays out between Jesse and Lexi, and if she like does like put the screws to him. And I mean, she won't. I know the answer to that question. She's gonna like, she'll believe his excuses, his reasoning, his description of events. And that'll probably keep happening until like he's like literally explicitly started sleeping with somebody else. Definitely want to see what Lindsay's planning to do with her like fury over Lil having apparently sent a DM while Lindsay and Carl were still together. I will just straight up say that I don't think this is a big deal. Like, I think that she needs to calm down about that. I don't like it, unless we knew that the DM was like intimate, like it was something very very intimate to her, like her I don't know, her top 5 favorite anime ships, or like her her favorite webcomic of a T-Rex who can't do push-ups, or something very meaningful to her. Otherwise, just sending him a message is like, okay, so what? Like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Do you think she's justified in calling him a monster, which is what she does call him at one point?
So jury's still out, I think. I think that, yeah, maybe it's not as big of a deal. It's hard to say without seeing the DMs, I guess. But yeah. I think that you can read between the lines in terms of what the motivations are between striking up this dialogue, I think. So I think that Lindsay is somewhat justified in feeling betrayed. I think what stands out to me the most about this, that I'm so energized to see Lindsay have some sort of righteous platform for her fury towards Carl. We have been waiting a long time. Lindsay is just, I think that she is one of the best reality TV personalities on Bravo. I think that she's just so great, and you can see her in action in the end of this episode where she says, I'm not going to confront Carl right now. It's not the right time to do this, because she wants to have the biggest impact she can with this. And she says, I just need to make sure no one else talks to him so that he can't get his story straight. And then we see a little snippet at the end of this episode in the preview for next week where she's unloading on him at the dinner table. So she's picking a strategic moment to make an impact. She's thinking about the story. I just think that she's just got really good intuition for this game, and I am so excited to see the Lindsay bomb go off.
Yeah, totally. I absolutely agree. She has great intuition, and you can see her trying to prepare for her moment, and she wanted something to use. I just think that she doesn't have as much ammunition as she would like to have to be able to do that, because I think it's kind of weak ammo, and she's trying to force it a little bit over the finish line, I feel, too, with her being like, oh, now that you mentioned it, yeah, I think I do remember a moment just before we broke up where he saw a DM and then he pushed it away really quickly, he didn't want me to see it. So that must have been that specific DM that you're referring to. Yeah, all right, sure, whatever you say.
I'm on board with it. For the sake of the soap, I'm here for it. Yeah. I think just thinking from a strategic perspective, this is she's clearly the most calculated person here, and she is setting up the framing for this in a way that is going to really give her the leverage she needs. She's trying to make sure that Carl has none of the leverage that he needs, and I'm just really, really here for that.
Yeah.
What stood out to you in terms of strategy?
I guess you already brought up the thing with Imrul. That kind of impressed me, that he seemed to use a little bit of strategic thinking. The other conduit for that information, though, was Bailey. Bailey was also kind of passing that information through. So she also seemed to be eager to get involved in the game. So I like to see that from her, from being a little strategic. I would like to see just more from her in general. But it was interesting to me that those kind of peripheral players, Imrul and Bailey, kind of people who aren't really in the center of things, were the ones who decided to start making sure that the information goes to the source, that Lexi is actually getting this info directly, that they're the ones actually doing it. That was kind of an unexpected twist for me.
Yeah, totally. Bailey, who has been pretty much absent since she was introduced. It seemed like she was being introduced at the same level as Lexi, but now, we've barely seen her, which is pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this soft bar idea is a good idea? Do you think it's gonna take off?
So, just before we do that, just let me just say that I thought it was really great work in the edit, the way that they have that montage confessionals with the friends talking about Carl's bar, where they shade it from everybody being like, oh, it's awesome, I support him completely, to everybody being like, and also I don't think it's a good idea, it won't work. The way they cut between them as it switches from total positivity to suspicion and negativity was really funny. So that was a great little moment that they set up there. No, I don't think it's a great idea. I mean, obviously the non-alcoholic cocktail space has been booming for years now. Yeah, first of all, you have to distinguish it from bars which have non-alcoholic cocktails, like they all do now, in addition to alcoholic cocktails. And you also have to distinguish it from cafes, which also generally now have all kinds of blended, fruity, herbal drinks. So it's the idea of a non-alcoholic cocktail bar sounds kind of novel at first, but then you're yeah, but you could get all that stuff at either a actual bar or a cafe. What's the actual difference here, other than the mushroom benefit that they're all getting at this party? I love how they chose the word benefit for putting a hallucinogenic in your drink, which I do not think you can actually sell in a bar. So I think that is just for this event. I don't know enough about California law to say what's legal and what isn't, but I'm pretty sure.
Or New York.
Yeah, New York. Sorry, about New York law, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't actually put mushroom powder in a drink you're actually selling in a licensed establishment, even if you can do that, just handing out free drinks at your like event for friends, I don't think that you could. Right? I don't know. I haven't done my research. So I think the mushroom benefit was just for this event, because otherwise that would be a selling point. Like that would be a thing that would get people at the door.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's not going to be in the actual soft bar, if the actual soft bar does get off the ground, because that wouldn't be legal. So it would just be like, here's a fancy lemonade for you. It's a big space, like a lot of people are into that shit, but to do it exclusively without other stuff, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a bad idea. I think you'd need like a very specific group of people to be going to this, because you're limiting your options for all the people involved. Like you said, you could go to a cafe, or you could go to a bar and get like a non-alcoholic or non-caffeinated fruity drink. It just seems like really limiting. I don't know who this audience is, but this scene I really liked. I liked this as a culmination of, Carl. He's like a victory lap for him. Like he's got something across the finish line, even though it is not across the finish line. I really enjoyed that. Lindsay pointed out that this isn't even something that's opening. It's just like a brand launch. He's launching the brand. There's like nothing actually happening here.
He said he's going to have like a food truck, or I guess a drink truck. That's just going to be like the next step before when they look for their brick and mortar location.
Yeah, it is so Carl. Like the criticisms that Lindsay has had about him having like a lack of drive and motivation and focus and the ability to like actually do something is seemingly very legitimate, because this is such a nothing launch. They're not really launching anything. And the fact that when Carl shows up here, his partners are like, "Oh yeah, do you want a drink?" He's like, "Oh yeah, what's the one for calming?" Like he seems to know nothing about his own like cocktails and brand. So it's so Carl. I really appreciated that, because it fits. Super proud of him. Good job. I don't think it's going to make any money.
No, I mean, I could kind of understand the concept in that you would think like, oh, for like sober people, and there's a lot of sober people out there for various reasons, they might be like, oh, it would be fun to have like sober drinks in a bar where it's just my fellow sober people. That sounds cool in theory, but who's going to bring the ambience? Who's going to bring the vibes? Come on, if you're going to be in a bar with zero drunk people, who's going to step up and make it funny? I don't know. Though I will take this opportunity to rant briefly about something that annoys me. People I feel are always complaining now that like non-alcoholic cocktails are too expensive. People are always like, oh, why is this cocktail $16 when there's no booze in it? And I always just want to push back on that idea, because I feel like people get too hung up on the idea that like the alcoholic content is what you're paying for. Like people are ordering non-alcoholic cocktails now that'll be like, they'll have I don't know, a syrup of lavender and ginseng with like a homemade bitters of chicory and red pepper with like fresh squeezed passion fruit juice and orgeat and stuff. Like it's not the 1 ounce of Tito's that you're splashing in that, which causes it to cost $18. Totally. It's the other shit going into it, and is also having the skilled bartender who takes a little dehydrated ring of blood orange and puts it on with tweezers and shit like that. There are things going into cocktails at a nice bar that are expensive and like time consuming to make, that aren't just like splashing some alcohol in. So I feel like people forget that when they're like, why should a non-alcoholic cocktail cost almost as much as the real thing? It depends on the cocktail, of course, but I just wanted to say that, because I always hear people bitching about that now, and I feel like it's not entirely justified.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's an element of this episode that I wanted to get your review on. So whenever we have a game take place on one of these episodes, it gets there's varying degrees as to how much it leans into the sports broadcast style element. I want to get what you thought of how this kickball game was communicated.
Yeah, I always want more of a sports broadcast style. I don't think we got enough of it here. I want a score bug on screen.
Yeah.
That's the term for the little thing with the score in it. I want that on screen at all times. I want updates. You have to skip some goals. I get it. You don't have 2 hours to show this to us. But I want every time a play happens that affects the score, I want to see how it affects the score right there. They do some good things. They have a highlight reel of Imrul catching the ball. We get a super slow-mo of West completely exaggerating his catch, which is classic West. West has a line in this episode where he's like talking about going into the kickball thing, and he's like, "I'm not going to give up. I just need to ramp it up." And that's like that feels like very classic West to me. It's like it just got to like be more of like an projecting that I'm like a hardworking good guy. Just got to ramp it up even more. That's my path to victory. So there are some moments where they treat it like live replays that are kind of fun. They could have followed the score. I mean, it was a blowout too, right? I think the final score was like, I don't know, what was it, like 6-1 or something? It was.
I don't remember.
Yeah. It was a blowout, so I guess there wasn't much tension to be had. But I wish they would have leaned into it even more. Because I love these sports. I love when they play sports.
Let's get into highlights. Any highlights that we haven't covered?
What haven't we covered? The toe suck we brought up. How intimate do you think? I know this is getting into like the Pulp Fiction territory, but how intimate do you think a toe suck actually is? Do you think that's just, is there such thing as a casual toe suck, to use Jesse's phrase? Or is it necessarily the act, unnecessarily an intimate act? A sexual act?
I can't think of a situation where a toe suck would be that casual, but I can buy the idea of a non-sexual toe suck happening as a joke. But when it is done in a room that has an ongoing threesome, I think that it's obviously clearly
context
a sexual
matters.
toe suck.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's in a bed where people are apparently in some state of disrobing, obviously in preparation to fuck if they haven't already started foreplay or whatever. So yeah, obviously in context, it is framed sexually. I think you would have to look harder to find a possible non-intimate toe suck than you would to find an intimate one. I think the natural state of a toe suck is intimacy. Feet are interesting. They are on that spectrum where like some people see them as the least sexual part of a body and some people see them as extremely sexual. I think that's really interesting about feet. But yeah, sucking more so than any other type of touching is like definitely framed intimately. So I think a casual toe suck sounds kind of chimeric, and you'd have to like come up with a very theoretical situation, whereas in this case it is clearly framed sexually and therefore must be considered as such.
The context matters, and also suction matters. The fact that it's a suck and not like a lick.
Yeah,
a joking like toe lick is easier to buy than a joking toe suck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once you're taking any part of a body into your own body, right away sexual. Yeah. In most situations.
Any other highlights?
I feel like we basically got through them. We kind of plowed through a lot of stuff in this episode. I think we've covered most of it. I do like that Lil shows up in a homemade dress stitched together by safety pins. Classic Lil stuff. I hope we get a lot more of her. I hope she doesn't just get flamed by Lindsay and then flees the show because she's funny.
I want her and Joe from Vanderpump Rules to start a podcast. I would listen to that. I don't listen to a lot of Bravolebs podcasts, but if they started one, you can count on me subscribing.
Yeah, she definitely made me think of Joe too. It's a very similar situation too, like where the guy getting out of a long-term relationship starts to get flirty with like the kind of dorky chick that he's palling around with. And then she takes the heat for it. Presumably Lil's going to take the heat for it. I don't know how much we're going to actually see of her going down the stretch, but I hope it's a lot more.
Yeah. The other thing that I had written down was Lexi's joke about how dirty she likes her martini at the beginning of that date scene just went over like such a lead balloon. with the waiter and got such a like disproportionately big reaction from Jesse. I just thought that was really funny. Just really drove home how lame these people are.
Yeah, you can't make a dirty martini joke to like a bartender or a waiter because it's one of those things where you have to think about how many times they've heard variations of the same joke you're going to say. You have to keep that in mind when you're talking to a service professional. If you're trying to get them to make a reaction, just think, is this an obvious joke that they probably hear every day or something close to it? Think about that, Lexi.
Okay, who are your stars here?
Stars. I haven't given this much thought. I think I've got to give number 1 to Jesse. I can't remember if I gave him number 1 last episode too. Probably. He's doing a lot. He's very there. The fact that he's always like has something to blurt out in response to everything, that he always like confidently says something. Often blurts out something that like would be inappropriate if you just like read the text, but he has it with like his big grin and his like, golden retriever charm that it almost always comes off and nobody like treats it as an awkward thing he said. So he's just always fun to have around with that big presence that like just is uncontrollable statements and just like just his like charming sloppy screen presence is always and now it's starting to really fuel the drama too, so I'm happy about that. I've got to give Jesse the first star, I think.
So on Jesse though, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is more damning, the fact that he was flirting with Ciara or the toe suck?
I gotta say the flirting with Ciara, because the toe suck, we're talking about one instance, which it should be pointed out, like where he could be like, oh, it's a thing that just happened when we're drunk, maybe, but you also chose to go into a room where you knew that a threesome was going on. So yeah. It's not exactly an innocent thing that just happened. Like he put himself in that situation, whatever. And he's also described in different ways. If I don't think he's been called out for that yet, but the different ways he's described it like don't quite match up. So that is damning, but the flirting with Ciara much more so, because it's such like an intentional choice that he's made over a long period of time. Like he's done it over and over and like pretty like directly and forcefully. Like it's just such a choice that he has made. So that makes it much more damning, because it's something he's clearly trying to make happen. It's not something that just happened in the moment one time when he was drunk. Like it's a thing that he is actively pursuing. So that's definitely more damning to me.
I also think like Lexi is latching on to like the right part of that too. The fact that he said something like, oh, things would be different if I was there before West. Like that is pretty damning in my opinion.
I don't think that's as damning as like the fact that he's doing right now, because it's like, Lexi wasn't there last year. Like that's, the situation was different and all that. But yeah, I can see it in the sense that he's been selling her this line of like, we're brother and sister. And then that clearly undercuts.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's pretty clear that it is, there's more than just this like joking intent behind it. Yeah. It's like, oh, we'd be in a relationship if I saw you before West or whatever. It seems like it's clearly an intent to engage on some sort of romantic level as opposed to just playful flirting.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't finish my stars, did I?
No, you did.
I'll maybe give Lexi my second star. She's obviously the other part of that. I liked her in the kickball game. I do like her. Also, the little like nicknames they have in the back of their jerseys, some of those were kind of funny, and I did like that Lexi's was Elwood.
Elwood,
like Elwood's. That was kind of a good one. She does have that kind of Reese Witherspoon energy. She also has a line I like where she says, "I'm sweating. I didn't even know that I sweat." That was funny. So she shows a little bit more like anger and intensity in that final scene. So I like her presence here. I'll give her a second star. And I'll give a third star let's go with Paige, because the other thing that I've highlighted that I love about the episode, even if it's just a little bit off the start, is how she's treating and discussing her fraying relationship with Craig. So since she brings that to the show, let's give her a fist bump too.
Yeah, I think that Jessie is going to be my number one star as well. Paige is an interesting one. I didn't have her immediately pegged as a star here, but I think that there is a good case for that, just because of how great that exchange was at the beginning of this. But I want to give my second star to Lindsay. I am just so excited by this storm that is brewing. I am looking forward to it. And my third star is going to be Carl, just because I think that it was his party. He,
Yeah,
I think that he's bringing an element here. So got to give him a star.
Yeah, good call.
All right. Well, I think that about does it for this week. Dylan, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
But yeah, you can find some writings about current cinema on my Substack. Just look for Dylan Ferguson on Substack. You'll find me there.
Awesome. I'm Craig Midwinter. You can find me at Bravo Outsider on Instagram, at Bravo Outsider on TikTok. I promise I'll post there again at some point. I haven't been doing a good job of that, but follow. You'll see it when it happens. But make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. You can watch us there. If you're watching right now, just hit the button down below. Subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Leave us a comment. Tell us who your stars were from this episode of Summer House. It helps us a ton with the engagement. And give us a call if you want us to talk about anything. Our number is 1-833-927-0178. We'll play your message on our next podcast and talk about whatever you want to talk about. You could be our first caller. We've had this number up. I say it every episode and no one calls. So you could be the first one. Until next week, keep on wifing.